Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Casey Barnes. I'm the Director of External Engagement for the Wharton MBA Admissions Office. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of your Thursday afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. I'm going to allow a critical mass of people to get on. We'll wait about another minute just so we can have people hear everything from the beginning. So I'll give it about 30 seconds. Jen, if you are ready, just give me the thumbs up whenever you're ready to go.
Great. I will say, let's do it. Let's get started.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much.
Well,
all
again,
right, welcome.
Yeah, Jen, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thanks, Casey. Sorry, we're jumping over each other. We're so excited. We're so excited to have everybody with us here today for this admissions event for Wharton, our industry spotlight right now, part of our industry spotlight series. We're going to be talking about startups and entrepreneurship, basically the whole kind of entrepreneurship ecosystem at Wharton for the MBAs. And we're really excited to talk with you today about this. We have some great speakers joining me today, so we'll dive into that. I'll just go over our agenda. Again, we're going to do sort of a high-level overview, and then one of my colleagues who's here with me is going to talk specifically about Venture Lab. I'm going to dig a little bit into MBA career management. We're going to share some high-level data, and then we have 3 alums who have joined us today to talk about their experience pursuing an entrepreneurial career while at Wharton, and I'm really excited to have a conversation with them. I have a few prepared questions for the panel, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So hopefully you'll be thinking along the way of questions you have for our alums. I will tell you a little bit more about myself, but I want you to know who's speaking to you today. My name is Jennifer Savoie. I'm one of the career advisors in MBA career management. If you know a little bit about our office, you know that we're divided along sort of specialty areas, and I cover entrepreneurial careers. And I'm joined by Jill Annick, who will be speaking to you in a moment from Venture Lab. So she's got a lot of exciting things to share with you. One of the things we really want to make sure that you all are aware of is that there are obviously many pathways to an entrepreneurial career, but here at Wharton, we really sort of talk about the 3 pathways, which is, becoming a founder while you're a student at Wharton, or being a joiner, what I call a startup joiner. So somebody who's taking the leap to join an earlier stage company rather than going through to a large established company that's maybe a legacy company that's been around for a long time. And then certainly perhaps doing a whole lot of activities while an MBA at Wharton, and then perhaps joining a startup or founding your own startup later after you graduated, maybe several years after you graduated. And we, both myself and Jill and her team, we work with students across any of these pathways while you're here and even after when you're alums. So that's very exciting. So just a high level before I toss it over to Jill. So the 2 kind of offices or entities at Wharton that a lot of students who are interested in entrepreneurship will work with, in addition to many, many others, are MBA career management and our team, and also the Venture Lab team. And on a very high level, you can kind of imagine what those 2 offices sort of represent. Career management is career advice, self-assessment, things like resumes and getting ready for interviews. We maintain a lot of startup company relationships, and I'll dig into this a little bit more in detail as we go along. We do programming. Venture Lab has a lot of development programs to help students thinking about founding their own ventures. They also have career-related resources. So it's not like you're just getting certain things from certain offices, and then many other office opportunities through them as well. So with that, let's dig into the details, and I'll pass things over to Jill. Jill just asked me to change slides whenever you need to, and you can talk to us about Venture Lab.
Almost committed the sin of forgetting to unmute myself, but thankfully I got it in time. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. As Jen said, my name is Jill Annick. I'm a Senior Associate Director at Venture Lab. So Venture Lab is an organization at Penn that supports students on their entrepreneurial careers, whatever that means for you. We work with students from across the University of Pennsylvania, including, of course, the MBA population. And what's really nice about that is when you're part of our organization, you're working with students, other students from engineering, from the college, from the med school, from the education school. So, whatever type of venture you'd like to pursue or whatever skill set you'd like to develop, we have a community that enables you to do that. So Jen, you can click the next slide. And Jen mentioned pathways, and that's exactly how we think of our students. So we think about the students in our programs as going along one of 5 different pathways in entrepreneurship. Of course, during your 2 years here, you would, maybe you would be on that founder pathway for the whole 2 years because now that you want to found a company. But maybe you start out as an explorer, then maybe you join a startup for a summer internship, then maybe you decide you want to do VC, then maybe you decide you want to be a founder. So we really, these aren't discrete pathways that you have to pick and stay on. It's really meant to be something that you can dip in and out of as, you know, makes sense for your career journey. But this is how we think of our students, as it helps us direct you to the right programs and the right resources on campus that, you know, are appropriate for you at the time. Jen, you can go to the next slide. And then speaking of programs, we are a global organization. Most of our programming is based at the Philadelphia campus. So that is where the majority of our programming happens. We have an incubator program, competitions, awards, mentoring, you know, internship awards, but there are programs as well at San Francisco. So these are some things you can engage with virtually, especially from everything that we've learned over the past, you know, almost 18 months of being a virtual organization. And also, if you are someone who's going to do either the executive MBA program in San Francisco, or maybe you'll participate in a semester in San Francisco program, there's activities and resources out at the Wharton San Francisco campus that you can take advantage of. We are also starting to build out our international presence, specifically in India and China. We have, you know, very large alumni populations in both of those countries, and a good number of students as well. So we are developing programs in those areas as well. And next slide, Jen. Now this is really the most exciting part. Tangen Hall is our new home. We will be opening in about 6 weeks, you know, fully opening for the fall semester. It has been delayed due to COVID, which is, you know, unfortunate, but for any of you who would be, you know, joining the Wharton community in, say, a year or so, this would be open for you to take advantage of. So it really is meant to be the student home for entrepreneurship on Penn's campus. There are multiple labs and studio spaces. There is a large colloquium room where there will be events and workshops and co-working space. There are small suites, kind of like a GSR, a study room that you can book to, you know, hold conference calls or do an investor pitch or work with your team. There are active learning classrooms where some academics will take place, and then just one rooftop terrace, which is fun, and which will be, you know, used for different events. Again, this is open to students across the University of Pennsylvania. So you don't have to be part of a particular program to come in and use the space. Although, of course, we hope that once you come in and start using the resources, you will also engage with our programming. So on the next couple of slides, we have just some examples of some of the lab spaces that are in Tangen Hall. So the first one is a retail lab. If you know anything about Wharton, the DTC retail ventures, very, very popular, have done very well in the marketplace. So we will have a retail lab on the first floor to showcase student and alumni startup ventures in the retail space. Another thing in Tangen Hall is we do share some of the space with some of the other research centers, and one of them is Baker Retailing. So if you are interested in working on a DTC startup or retail or fashion, you'll not only have our resources, the entrepreneurial resources in Tangen Hall. Right upstairs, you'll be able to work with the Baker Retailing Center as well. One of my pet projects is the food lab. I've been working on this for about a year. This will be a test kitchen, so very unique at universities, and certainly unique at Penn. This will be a space for students who are working on a food-related venture, so either a restaurant concept or some sort of food product for supermarket shelves. We'll be able to use this space to do recipe testing, recipe development, test out your products, packaging, things like that, all under the supervision of an experienced kitchen manager. So we're really excited for this because it is so unique, and it'll allow students to have a certified, safe space to do recipe development instead of dorm rooms and apartments. So we're excited to have students start to use this space in September. And the next slide has a couple more of the lab spaces. So we have several maker labs on campus. These will all be run by Penn Engineering, but again, open to students across the university. So MBAs are very welcome to use these spaces. There will be all kinds of tools in here, like 3D printers and lathes and woodworking machinery and things to do little electronic projects, and I'm sure more very interesting and technical hardware that I don't necessarily have the name for. And all, again, you would work in a space under the supervision of staff from Penn Engineering. The only requirement is that we have you do a safety training and learn how to use the equipment, but again, then open for you to come in and explore and hack and invent and work with students from across the university. And then finally, there's the digital media lab and design studio. And this is for students who say you are creating a food product in the test kitchen and you want to shoot a video of it or take some professional looking photos. This is where you can do that. You also can get support for developing a social media presence for a business or recording pitch videos for various competitions. So we really hope that Tang and Hall and Venture Lab is kind of a one-stop shop for students who are building out ventures and also just exploring. So you might not be working on an actual venture idea, but you can still use the Maker Lab. You can still use the different studios and engage in the program. And then you can go to the next slide, Jen. And then for what's going to be happening this fall, the building is complete. There has been some activity in there, but we will be able to fully open in September and for the beginning of the fall semester. We'll have some classes in there. We'll have students using the space. We're very excited for it. And then with the food lab, one of our big milestones was just passing our health inspection the same way restaurants, have to do that. So we're very happy that that's happened. And all signs point to us being very active in the fall semester. So then hopefully, if any of you are in the Philadelphia area, we should have regular tours and things like that happen. So if you ever are in Philadelphia and want to see the space, maybe while you're considering your application to Wharton, we can make that happen. And then Jen, I think that's my last slide, right?
I think you're right. That was fantastic. I'm so excited about Tang and Hall opening. And so our return to campus is happening this fall in general, just so everybody knows. So it's like extra amplified for Jill and her team. And for those of us who liaise with the Venture Lab team a lot. So the excitement around this is just, you can tell we're very amped about it. So it's good we've been waiting for this. We're a year, we've been waiting for it for a while. So it's very exciting. So as you can see, there is from Jill, Venture Lab is now a physical home. It always was, but it's a legitimate big, part of a whole new building, and also an amazing team of people who help work through all the programs that Jill sort of talked about, especially on that global side, all sorts of things to support student entrepreneurs. But when I showed that first slide, Venture Lab also supports people who want to be startup joiners. So there's an opportunity. They have a whole program to help students who are like, I might not have the risk tolerance to be a founder, but I'd love to support my student peers who are working on a startup. And so there's a fellows program where you can join one of your peers who's taking the bigger risk, and you can get that early stage experience by helping out one of your classmates. So just lots of great opportunities through what's happening at Venture Lab. Now I'm going to put on my career coach's hat and really talk to you about a little bit more in depth about what's going on in career management. Just a little bit about me. I've been with career management now for 18 years. It's a long time, but it feels sometimes like 18 days because I love the work that I do so much. And I'll dig into a little bit of what I get to do in that. First, I want to tell you about my office a little bit more. So if you've been going to any sessions around Wharton Career Management, any of the things that we've been offering so far, or if you have friends who've gone here, you might have started to hear about this lexicon, this language that we use when we talk about recruiting. Several years ago, we decided to say, there's kind of these different ways that companies and employers recruit. And one is this structured way that companies that have been recruiting MBAs year over year have a high volume of hiring they can afford to do every year, have long timelines where they know their needs and they can hold roles open, and we can kind of count on them to come back every year. It's very structured. We put the word mature around that. That's mature recruiting. And then we were thinking well, what about all the other stuff? We have so many students who are thinking, that's not for me. I want to take a bigger risk. I want to do something a little bit different, a little bit off the beaten path. I want to kind of, rather than wait for the market that's going to come for me, I want to go after a market that I've identified. So we use the word enterprise. So the two strategies, two skill sets around recruiting when we talk at Wharton is that there's this mature process or this more enterprise process. And they do involve being a top candidate, getting your candidacy ready. We will always help you prepare for that. How are you going to market either way? How are you showing up? But there's a little different way in how the skills you bring and the kinds of things you have to tactically do. So we help you as an office get ready for that once you come here. And startup recruiting falls pretty squarely in the enterprise side. I'm sure none of you are surprised to hear that. How our office is structured, and again, you may have heard this if you've come to some of our other sessions, is we have sort of two sides to the house in MBA career management at Wharton. This is very similar to some of the other schools as well. We have the student support, so student advisors offering one-on-one advising and coaching, small group workshops. We do everything from self-assessment through helping you manage offers and everything in between. We manage relationships with alumni as well. We have a team that coaches alumni, so you have lifelong career management on a one-on-one basis, and offer a lot of programming to help you get ready to go to market, if you will. We also have our employer engagement team. So this is a team of people who are spending their days engaging with employers, whether they are early stage companies or some of these very legacy companies that have been recruiting Wharton people for years in a very structured way, the mature players. We're working with all of them to help them maximize their kind of strategy in recruiting students at Wharton and getting in front of you, the students, should you choose to come here, and making sure they're being seen through all of that. And we also, within that, so we have a bunch of teams, each one of us, like all the advisors could coach any student who walks into their office. But then within that, and this is a long-standing sort of specialty here at Wharton, we have this industry or focus area specialty. So like myself, I am the advisor for students who want to think about an entrepreneurial career. So founders and joiners. And we also have people who are covering all sorts of other industries and functional areas. And same on the employer side. How we support your careers specifically, if we think about the startup team, how that breaks down. So I am here to work with students. I have built an entire student-facing website that's all about how to navigate. We call it MAP. We have to have acronyms for everything at Wharton. It's to help you sort of, it's my action plan is basically what that stands for. And it's to help students understand kind of high level, what does a startup job search look like? What are the things I have to take into consideration? What are some trends in startups across the globe? What does the data look like? So, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't get a hold of me, but you have some questions, you could probably go into the MAP site and find some answers to the questions you have. And that was the goal of building the site. And then students come in for one-on-one advising. We do specialized emails to students who identified and say, hey, I want to hear from career management and Jen about stuff that's going on in startup recruiting. You can sign up for those emails. And then we have a startup career fellow who does resume reviews and helps with mock interviews. So everything you could imagine is happening, not just holistically in career management, but also from the sort of startup focused career side. Additionally, we're offering as an office and then as an individual team, tons of skills workshops, career skill workshops. We're offering alumni panels. We're partnering with clubs to do things like Startup Week, Startup Treks, things like that. Traditionally, we've hosted a spring networking expo in San Francisco, and I do this in partnership with my employer engagement teammate who works with the employers. And I'm just, to represent her, sort of just throwing some names on there, just a very small little snapshot of some of the relationships we have. There are literally hundreds of startup relationships that we have on the employer engagement side that students can benefit from when they come here, which is really exciting. I want to show just a little bit more about what we're talking about. I think you've got a great sense of like the entrepreneurial ecosystem here at Wharton with Venture Lab and career management for MBA students. Really exciting stuff, but we're not the only ones. There is a whole ecosystem that's going to help any student think about, investigate, think about and pursue your career as a founder or as a startup joiner. And it's career management. We work very closely with club leaders. Obviously the clubs that would come to mind, E-Club, which is our fond name for our Entrepreneurship Club, Founders Club, these make a lot of sense. But there's also a lot of activities happening in other clubs that make sense for the startup world. So FinTech Club, Tech Club, of course, the VC side of the PEVC Club, and then lots of other clubs that are targeting startups. For example, I worked very closely with my teammate, Sugitha, who works with the retail students, because a couple of years ago, the retail club really wanted to do a couple of retail treks to New York that were focused on early stage retail players. And so we worked together with that club to make sure that they were pulling together like the best experience for their club members. And it ended up sort of being a joint event. So lots of ways that there's this broader community at Wharton that's helping you find opportunities to engage and explore and pursue your interest in these areas. So hopefully that's exciting to you guys. So I want to take just a quick pause. One of the things, and I guess it's not a pause, just to sort of dig in a little bit into some of the things you might want to think about. I think those of you who are on this session today are thinking about B-School, and within that pursuit, you're also thinking like, well, what about startups? What about joining an early stage company? Maybe you've lived in that world. Maybe you are 100% a startup person, and the scariest thing to you right now is the concept of maybe joining a big bureaucratic company. Maybe you've been in a big bureaucratic company and you're thinking about B-School, and you're also thinking about it as an opportunity to help you change things up, to think about going earlier stage, going smaller team. So some of the things I would encourage you to add to your personal exploration right now is just some of the things that are important to recognize about startup culture. And I've listed some of them here on this slide. This is the stuff we hear from alumni coming back a lot, whether they're founders or joiners, that students should be ready for. Is this change is constant, fast-paced environment, this idea of action orientation and getting things done, rolling up your sleeve. We hear that a lot. And this is the feedback they give us. They sort of say, Jen, make sure the students who are applying for our jobs or coming to talk to us through networking are ready to show that aspect of themselves and dig into that they're that kind of person, kind of a roll up your sleeves and get things done, whatever your job title is kind of a mentality. So hopefully as you're exploring B school, if you're thinking about startups, you can also start to incorporate some of these kind of culture trends to see if you think that they'd fit you well and it's something you want to pursue. So because we're at Wharton and Wharton loves data, I thought, and I'm sure some of you are curious about this, I wanted to share a little bit of data, keeping it very high level, but hopefully some things will answer some of your questions perhaps. So just this is from the summer of 2020, last year. We're still in the process of gathering data for the current year, of course. We don't close our data collection until late September, just like all the other B schools. So I'm sharing this with you. But what's really interesting is the sort of trend is that about 3% of the classes, both classes, the summer of 2020 reported that they were spending their summer or graduating to work on their own startup. So rather than reporting, I'm accepting this job here, they reported to us, I'm not pursuing an actual job because I'm choosing to found my own venture. And so 3% is pretty big at a large school like ours. So it's great. And I love the consistency there. I think there's a story that's really blossoming there. We have a slightly higher percentage of students who say they are accepting internships with startups than those who are accepting full-time offers. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we have some sponsored students who sort of have the luxury and the freedom to just do anything they want for the summer. So they're taking the biggest risk and saying, I'm going to go work at a startup because I've never done that before. And then those people are probably returning to their sponsoring companies. And so they fall off a little bit. We still have 8% of the class leaving Wharton upon graduation saying, you know what, I'm going early stage. Now, when we say startups, we're talking about everything from a seed stage, baby company, right up through pre-IPO. So we are talking a vast array of companies, some which may have name recognition, but we would tag them all as startups. So this is an exciting story that we're seeing here at Wharton. A little bit on the timing, and this goes back a little bit to what I was talking about mature and enterprise and how they're different. As you can see, and I've shared 3 years of summer internship timing. That one outlier of summer 2020, somebody got a startup offer in early as November. Really interesting. I'm sure they networked into that opportunity. But as you can see, this is very much a spring semester play. And this is why in my coaching and advising with students, I do a lot of conversations early in the year about risk tolerance. You know, if you know that the good number of your classmates in first year are probably going to be sitting on summer offers in February, and that's kind of when the conversation's just taking off for startup joiners, this is something you got to come to grips with before making this decision. And this is why we have specialized coaching at Wharton MBA Career Management, because this is a conversation I'm very comfortable having with students and asking you the right questions to help you get to your honest answer about this. And then just sources of offers. And I share this, and again, this is intern offers. And I'm sharing this because I think what's great is that no surprise that personal networking connections, that networking is incredibly important for sourcing opportunities in the startup world. So 33% of this pie. But that being said, 28% of students got their summer internship offers from startups through the Wharton job board postings. So this is where my teammate, who is the employer engagement person engaging with startups, she's getting them to post their jobs on our job board. She's reminding them that we have great talent here because it's easy for them to be heads down in what they're building and forget about that. Also, Wharton alumni contacts are very important, and also career management contacts. So there's just a variety of sources for these opportunities, and many of them are coming through the fact that people are being here at Wharton at the time and getting these opportunities. So that's just an exciting stat to share with all of you. And then just because we love some logos and it's exciting, this is just a little tip of the iceberg of some brand names where students are actually got hired. Many of them are this summer, a couple from last summer, just some fun names that are out there across kind of all the sectors. And that's the great thing about this one is, you know, everything from here, we've got nature's find, but we've got Ripple. So we've got cryptocurrency and new ways of eating food. So there and everything in between. So just an exciting place. And these are the companies that are looking to Wharton for talent to hire into internships and full-time opportunities. Again, just a little tiny bit of information there. And then these two slides, which I really love, and this speaks a little bit more to the venture lab side and the founder side. And this is, as I said in the note at the bottom, by no means an exhaustive list. This is just some of the companies that were founded by Wharton alum. Many of them were founded while they were students here, MBA students here at Wharton. Some of them were founded a few years out, but just a lot of things. And again, just looking at the breadth of industries that are represented here. And we've got a second slide here for this. So, you know, some names you hear a lot when you're at Wharton about Allbirds, and Zoe are being one of the co-founders, and Warby Parker, but just Little Spoon, very apt, catered to me. It looks just like Dagny Dover. Who knew? I mean, hopefully you guys know this if you're looking at Wharton for entrepreneurship, but just an exciting array of student and alumni founders at Wharton. So it's something we're proud of and excited about. And Jill and I celebrate all the time. You can see her sort of posting new news about companies as they go public or get acquired on the Venture Lab Slack. And we're constantly celebrating this whole world that we're showing to you guys. So hopefully this has piqued your interest and you want to join us. So with that, I now am going to ask our panel to join me if everybody's here. And I'm excited to hopefully bring to life a little bit of what we shared on slides, because slides are interesting and boring and flat and people are better. So I'm going to actually stop sharing.
And I'm going to pin all our alumni right now.
Wonderful. Okay. I want to new share. Nope, I don't want a new share. I want to stop sharing. Oh, there we go. My little spreadsheet was not opening up, or my little grid. All right. Are we all here? All right. I see Joe, I see Jamie, and do I see Dana? Do we have Dana yet? Casey, you know? Oh, there you are. Yep. Okay. I've got lots of faces on my screen. Okay, we're good to go. Yay. Oh my
And
gosh.
do you want me to pin you too?
Oh, you don't have to pin me. They've seen me enough. That's fine.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, thank you. We have 3 wonderful young alumni here to talk about their experience at Wharton and with the entrepreneurship ecosystem and making their way into this. And so I'm just going to dive right in. We have Joe and Dana and Jamie. And I would love each of you just to, and maybe we'll go in that order, and love each of you to introduce yourselves, you know, your name, what did you do prior to Wharton, what did you do for your summer internship, and what are you doing post Wharton? And you know, tell us about your companies, because either you founded them or you joined them very early. So let's dig into what we're talking about for you guys in terms of being early stage founders or joiners. Joe, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Jen. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Ammon. I'm a 2019 graduate of the Wharton MBA program. Prior to Wharton, I worked at Deloitte in their M&A transaction services group in New York, serving private equity clients. I had always dreamed of starting a business. That was been my goal from a young age, and Wharton was the vessel for me to do that. So I joined Wharton with an idea that I quickly disproved in 6 weeks. And eventually landed on Clove still in that first semester. Clove is what I did over the summer. I was lucky to win the Summer Venture Award my year. Just gave funding for that summer, and then launched Clove shortly after graduating. And Clove, if you're wondering, I'm bearing the lead, is footwear for healthcare professionals. So I have our Code Lavender shoe here. It was inspired by my wife, who's a registered nurse, and we launched in November of 2019, and it's been an unbelievable, super exciting ride ever since, and happy to talk more about that, but I'd love to hear from Dana and Jamie too.
Thanks. Want to go ahead, Dana?
Cool. Yeah, I'll take the baton. It's a nice segue because my sister's in vet school and we have a bunch of Clove shoes out in our living room. So lots of support and love for Clove and Joe. I am a 2020 grad, so graduated the year behind Joe. Jamie and I are the same year and good friends, so exciting to be on a panel together. It's nice to see everyone. My background is in market research, and I worked in very traditional agency market research and branding for about 5 years. I left that world in honor of entrepreneurship and business school. I wrote my admissions essays into Wharton around wanting to build a startup in the space, specifically as it relates to physical product testing. So, fast forward 2.5 years, and I am a grad, and I'm founder and CEO of Highlight. We're an agile product testing platform. We are a essentially community of highlighters who receive products in exchange for free in exchange for feedback. And we're a B2B2C business where we work with Pepsi and P&G and Nestle to get data on new product innovations. At Wharton, my first year, I didn't know exactly what that solution looked like. I explored early stage investing. I explored some startup operating. I worked with Two Robbers, which is a startup out of Joe's year, some great Viv, who was who started a hard seltzer company. And then I also started working and spent the summer in venture at a consumer fund in New York. So explored a lot of different sort of aspects of operating and investing early stage before I landed on the idea, and spent my second year really building the business. And since then have raised and really very much full-time in Highlight mode.
Very cool. And Dana also won one of the pitch competitions and was amazing when she presented on her company. Great, Jamie, why don't you tell us? And Jamie's our joiner, so we're going to hear a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's great to be here. I also graduated with Dana, and we kind of commiserated over 2 years and how to kind of navigate the startup world. So it's really fun to be here. My name is Jamie. Prior to Wharton, I worked at Amazon for 5 years. And so I was really kind of like in that big company life. I came to Wharton because I wanted to pivot into a smaller company, and I didn't quite have the direction to go right from Amazon. And I think anyone who works at a big company, only after you leave do you realize the kind of blinders that you really had on, and how it's really helpful to have guidance when you're moving to such a small company. In between my first and second year, I interned at Airbnb. I found my job in May, so I really can attest to the whole timeline situation. I also was in Jen's office once a week, and so I kind of attest to the high touch nature of Wharton Career Services. And then now I work at a company called Dandy. We are a business in a box for dentists, and so we kind of sit in between the transaction between a dentist and their dental lab. So if you go and get a crown, a bridge, a night guard, we facilitate and streamline that transaction with dentists. We're on our way to kind of serving dentists beyond just lab work and in more of a full service capacity. So I do people operations, which is everything from onboarding to compensation analysis to performance management. And Wharton has been pretty instrumental in helping me navigate that, just the experiences I had there. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. I just have a couple other questions, and I'm going to combine the two questions I sent to you guys because I think they kind of flow together. It used to be that startups would kind of talk to a candidate who's like, yeah, I'm getting my MBA. And they'd be like, why are you spending time doing that when you would just be diving into the startup world? And I think that's changed. I've watched it change over the last 10, 12 years, where they see amazing startups being founded by MBAs, and they kind of figured it out. It's like, oh, these people have incredible skills that are very applicable to starting up a company. And so now they're excited to hear from them. But I still think for people who are interested in joining startups or being in the startup ecosystem, some people wonder, it's like, well, why did you do B school? So I'd love for you guys to talk about like, why B school? I mean, you all sort of mentioned this interest in early stage companies, starting your own or joining something smaller, younger, something like that. So why did B school come up for you? What was that journey like, that decision journey? And then once you got here, dig in a little bit more, if you don't mind being specific around like, what were the things that helped you along the way, whether it was specific classes, specific competitions, things like that, moments that just sort of got you to where you are today. And why don't we just go backwards? I'll start with Jamie, Dana, and Joe.
Yeah. Why B school? A couple of reasons. Again, kind of what I mentioned, I think going from a big company to a startup is a really big leap. And so B school really allowed me to be intentional about that step. I think people get really intimidated. The idea of, oh my gosh, I work at this giant organization going to a startup. When Dandy joined, it had 10 people. I was the 11th. And so in that sense, that can feel really intimidating. The thing that really helped, I think now in my role, I as people ops, there's a lot around just the people management classes that I took that were really helpful. But ultimately, it's my peers that I met. My peers were really helpful in pushing me to be risky, to try a company that I maybe hadn't heard of, to really go early stage because I knew that I had wanted it. And you need people to help you be accountable and to kind of be your partners on that journey. And so the peer group that I met at Wharton, all of whom, the entrepreneurship community is pretty small, you like get to know each other pretty quickly, were really instrumental. That was really helpful. And then just when I first got the job, I mean, I still kind of email with Wharton professors and I'm like, hey, can you, you know, the remote workforce, whatever it is, they are super willing to kind of stay in touch post graduation. So those are the two I think about Wharton that have been really helpful for me in this role.
Thanks, Jamie. That's great. I think people are surprised sometimes to hear that from a school as big as Wharton, that you're still connected to faculty. So that was a great detail. Dana, tell us about your decision for B School and also kind of what helped you along the way become the founder that you are.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'll try not to be too long-winded, but the decision for B School was definitely realizing that I didn't necessarily have the entrepreneurial network or resources in my day-to-day job around me if I didn't enter into such a robust ecosystem of early stage and diverse backgrounds. So I had done a little diligence around the business schools and the entrepreneurial programs that are offered, and really I heard just incredible things about Wharton entrepreneurship and the strength and growth of the Wharton entrepreneurship community. And really, to Jamie's point, I think even after graduating and being as busy as we are in early stage life, there are so many ties to Wharton in so many different ways. I mean, at every turn, there is no one better to turn to than our peers and peers above us, and really sort of close contacts who will be real with you and share with you, how to think about, XYZ next step in your operations. I met my co-founder at Wharton. I have hired 3 summer interns out of Wharton this summer. I am very much I found that I got so much from the people above me in entrepreneurship at Wharton that I feel so committed to continuing that cycle. And I think there's just a lot of positive momentum around how helpful people are, both high level and really mechanically. Yeah.
Thank you. And Joe?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very tough question because I think Wharton was so fundamental in so many facets to the success that we've had at Clove and the success I've had as a leader of this business. But I think echoing Dana's comment, it was really when I looked at the B School or no B School decision, it was, do I have the toolkit and the network and the knowledge to execute against an idea? And the assessment for me was I don't. And I look back to, I think one of the fundamental conversations I had was with David Klein, who's the founder of Common Bond, who many of you, you'll hopefully engage with Common Bond when you accept at Wharton. But he was a Wharton MBA, and really he hit home like the ecosystem and the network has paid dividends for him years after. And that was the sense that I had gotten from Wharton entrepreneurship from the beginning, and it really became true. And echoing both Dana and Jamie, like my classmates I still talk to them weekly. Many of them invested in the business and have been fundamental thought leaders. And I think about classes, like, not to be nerdy, but Adam Grant's initial class on teamwork and leadership is something I think about all the time now as this team is rapidly growing, and I'm going back to lessons that he had on how to not screw things up too badly. But I always describe it as if I plotted a tree of like every aspect of Clove, Wharton would be covering 90% of it, and that's what's been so rewarding from the process. Is it really from investors to teammates to class to really the inspiration to take the risk all came from committing to the program. And I think when I did the assessment of looking at other schools, I think Wharton is the best at you can walk in the door and start executing on day one on your idea. And maybe you're like me and you disprove your idea very early on, and then you have the toolkit to find the thing that you truly want to commit to.
I'm muted and rambling away. Thank you, all three of you. This is great. I want to be cognizant of time, and that was my formal question. So Casey, I'd love to sort of open up and see if we have questions in the chat. And what I'd like to encourage you, everybody on the call today, we can do questions in chat. I think you have started that, which is fine. If anybody's feeling brave and wants to turn on their camera, we can do it that way. I'd like to encourage you, like it's rare, like the institution is available for you going forward, but these alums, we have them for 20 more minutes. So I think if you have questions for our three panelists, I would start with that. Let's try to prioritize things that is speaking to them, talking about their experience or something specific. And then we can maybe towards the end go into the more of the high level school stuff.
Yeah, so the first one was directed at Joe, and I think it's a great one for all three. Can you please identify some of the critical things that Wharton was able to provide that helped you to successfully launch and operate your venture, things that you could not have received otherwise?
Yeah, I think, you know, if I really think of what for Clove, or my journey with Clove, like the fundamental breaking point was identifying that the idea I had wasn't going to work, and then having the kind of quick assessment toolkit of looking at other ideas. And so when, you know, I had probably spent 6 months on my initial venture concept, and I was able to, you know, disprove that one. And within 2 months, I had vetted maybe 6 other ideas and really gotten excited about Clove. And from that point is actually like, once you're through the toolkit, that's when Wharton really starts to shine, in that intros to, you mentioned Dagny Dover, Jen, like the Deepa and Melissa at Dagny Dover have been incredible mentors from that point, literally that a week after I had solidified the idea, to eventually investing in the business. And it's the toolkit is kind of like a hard thing. Like it's like the concept is kind of hard to talk about in this setting, but like, I don't know if Dana and Jamie had a similar experience, but I really felt like I had been able to identify the 3 or 4 critical elements of what made a venture a good idea or not. And for me, that was something that I did not have coming in, and have benefited from a lot thereafter.
Thanks, Joe. The next one, it would be, this is a great one. How did Wharton prepare you, and you being the collective alumni panel, for managing small teams in a dynamic startup environment?
I can go and break the silence. Although Jamie, I'm curious as people ops what you're gonna say here. I mean, everything in Wharton is like team based and all about collaboration and teamwork. And I think that I really have taken that to heart, in that managing a team is about collaboration. It's not at all top down, and it's making sure that everyone on your team is empowered and motivated to do exactly what they need to do. And so making sure everyone is feeling great, has the tools they need, and is comfortable with you as either a leader or a manager and a teammate, to be really communicative. I think all of that. So we're relatively small. We're a team of 7 now, and we're all remote, and communication is more key than ever. So kind of working through the dynamics, the learning teams, the team-based class exercises have all just kind of ingrained that in the way I work.
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things. Number one, I think it really gave me the confidence to, when you are growing, when you're working at a company that's experiencing hypergrowth, you quickly need to be able to level up. Like my job when I started in August is fundamentally different today than it was then. The company has grown enormously, and Wharton really gave me the confidence, I think, stepping into really risky situations, whether it's in the classroom or outside, to be like, okay, now we were at 11 people, now we're 50. I'm good. I'm still like capable and confident and able to influence peers who maybe have more experience than I do, more work experience, whatever it is than I do. Really gave me the confidence in order to not just succeed at my job when I joined, but succeed at my job today. And so I think that comes both from experiences inside and outside the classroom where you really push yourself, right? Like Wharton is as much as you make of it. And so if you're like, I'm going to do the things that are scary, I'm going to do the things that are tough in this environment with ambitious and really inspiring people, then when you get to a startup, you will be that much more equipped to do that when you're actually there. So number one is just giving me that confidence, that's the solid ground that as the startup continues to change, I'm really able to execute against my role. And the second is just, I thought the management classes were good. Like Peter Capelli, shout out. I genuinely did. I did not come into this startup doing people operations. We just needed it. And I didn't think, I'm glad I paid attention to Peter Capelli's class because I continued to reference those things. And I think that anybody who works at a startup, you never operate alone. And the fact that Wharton leans so much on the team environment means that even the management training leans towards how do you do this as a team? How do you do this when people aren't always cooperating? How do you kind of get everybody to row forward in the same direction? And so I'll say there were real like great academic things that I got out of it, but most importantly was having peers and having mentors that push you to take risks at business school that you wouldn't get opportunities to take otherwise, specifically Wharton. So that if you are a joiner and you do join a company that's changing really fast and you do need to level up like every 3 months, you're able to do that.
Thank you, Dana and Jamie. Great question. I would love to hear from the panelists about being in the startup ecosystem during the pandemic and how Wharton prepared you for that uncertainty. And I love being able to see Jamie. I feel like I can hear you thinking, and I love that. So it's awesome.
Like it was like recruiting in April sucked. You guys, recruiting in March and April was really rough. And Dana knows because I called her and it was just like, it was hard. And I think Wharton, again, it just pushed my risk tolerance. I was like, I'm not going to take a job that I don't really like. I work like really your Wharton classmates will help gut check you because they're also doing all the same stuff. And March and April was really tough. And I think without the community I built at Wharton, I wouldn't have had the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to just take a pause on this for a minute. I ended up getting my job in July. I'm really glad that I waited it out. I don't think I would have done that had I not have had all of the support across the board, pushing me to wait for the right opportunity and helping me vet the opportunities that were coming across the table.
Yeah, I just echo that. I mean, I think in pandemic, the onus was on you to reach out and to communicate with your classmates since you weren't just showing up to job fairs or doing, pre-planned, more organized, structured things as you would in a non-pandemic environment. We pivoted in pandemic environment, our entire model. We started in a pandemic environment. We fundraised in a pandemic environment, and all of that was made possible by my peers, my classmates, the network of investors, of operators, of everyone that I knew at Wharton, and then everyone that they knew at Wharton, and Wharton alumni that really came and surrounded Highlight in that very insecure moment with some real genuine wanting to help and ability to help. And that would absolutely have not been possible if it was a shallow network or if those connections weren't real. But I really think that the time spent at Wharton and the way that the Wharton community is, especially as it relates to early stage, is so tight knit. And so I've gotten so much out of this. And so I want to give back. And so, I think that's why, Jamie, Joe, and I are here. And I think that just that culture continues to persist. So in the hard times like COVID, it only shows up even more.
Yeah, and I would definitely say the pandemic was both very difficult for Clove and also incredible for Clove because our core value prop before COVID was the fact that you can use the same like industrial wipes in the hospital to clean this shoe as that you use to clean anything else in a hospital. And so, you know, our team quadrupled during the pandemic. And I think I leaned a lot on what I learned at Wharton for like, well, how do you structure how this team interacts with each other? Like what touch points do we need to do? How do we do mentoring when this whole team is growing rapidly and aren't together? And I think what's been really cool is we opened up our new office here last week. The whole team aggregated in Philly for the first time ever. And it was amazing to see, like, we truly did build significant bonds digitally during the pandemic to where, you know, we all walked in and it felt completely natural. And I could totally see how without a little bit of thinking and training and teamwork and management, where things could have gone sideways. And I'm sure many of you have seen that in your own lives. So it's, you know, I look at it was a blessing to have the education and also, you know, be able to build the team during that time.
Thanks to the three of you, really, really wonderful responses, reflective of the Wharton community as a whole. So thank you. Next question is directed specifically for you, Dana. So don't unmute yourself. How did your summer on the investment side improve your outcomes as you built Highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that I always talk about is how Wharton allows you the opportunity to explore. There are so many kind of pave your own way, create your own adventure. It's not an internship, it's not a job, it's not a part-time whatever, but you can get involved in whatever you would like with the time on your plate, and you can really make your time at Wharton what you want it to be. So my first year, I spent a lot of time during the semesters working with local or Philly-based or Penn-connected VCs doing shadowing and scouting and this and that, and just decided in the summer to really dive in. And all of that exploration was just helping me hone what I wanted to do in my career and make sure that operating was right for me. And once I did realize that, B, have an incredible perspective for what it's like to sit on the other side of the table and be able to craft my pitch and my story and my business in a way that I knew would resonate. And then, of course, you know, the venture community is very tight knit, and those connections, you know, have been critical in maybe fundraising, but also just building and continuing to operate. So would highly recommend, kind of, especially if you're unsure or even if you're 99% at Wharton, you know, the entrepreneurship early stage world is your oyster. So, you know, take the time and explore and get to the place that you feel really, really confident in.
Thanks, Dana. This is for the entire panel. Did Wharton connect you to startup resources outside of Wharton? Is there specifically startup incubators in Philadelphia or other cities that Wharton was able to connect you to?
I would say I was connected to many different, especially as I was raising, from Wharton founders, Wharton related, Wharton alum that are in early stage, was connected to many different investors and accelerators. I think when the Wharton network is so vast, it doesn't mean that you're just, you can just reach into any part of the Wharton network. It's that network can then connect you elsewhere. And there is a willingness and a, you know, happy to connect you energy that is pretty critical. So none of our investors are necessarily Wharton, but they are, you know, 99% introduced by someone at Wharton or somehow involved in Wharton.
Yeah, and I think the flip side of that too is there's a lot of investors and incubators that are actively targeting getting connected at Wharton. I mean, our lead investor, their two partners are here in Philly, and the first thing they asked me was, well, what Wharton startups do I need to talk to? So, you know, it's Wharton's a known commodity in the space, and I definitely saw a lot of that. You know, there's lots of people watching what's going on at the school with the intention of getting involved, which is great.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than to echo what Dana and Joe said, which is that so many of my job leads were folks at Wharton connecting me to other people. I got my internship at Airbnb because one of my classmates had a brother that worked at Airbnb and was adjacent to the org that I ended up working for. And my manager was from Wharton. So like, yeah, very helpful.
All right, so we're about 3.5 minutes away from the top of the hour. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, including our very generous panelists who have taken time out of their days. We're going to do one last question, sort of a lightning round, but not really. What is one thing that stuck with you at Wharton, whether it be a class, an experience, or a quote, that still resonates with you today at your startup?
I can kick it off. I think it's just like, there was a lot of kind of why not you, like, and I think that has really resonated with me here, especially as the company continues to grow. Why can't you? Okay, you did this job, now it looks different. Why not you? 6 months from now, why not you? And I got told that by so many of my peers, and that's really helpful. Not just because I'm a big Russell Westbrook fan. For any NBA heads out there.
I will actually, in that vein, I always say that sure there is the classes and the readings and the mechanics and the frameworks of building a startup that that I learned that were incredibly useful and tactically helpful. But I think for me, more so than the book smarts, I think the key that really allowed me to build, highlight, and go for highlight in the way that I have today is just the confidence that Wharton instills in you. I think watching folks around you, the years ahead of you, be very real with their journeys, you know, tell you they were scared, they did it, they didn't know what they were doing, they did it. You need to, like, yeah, you can do it. Similar to what Jamie's saying, that is a, you know, qualitative sort of undefinable variable, but pretty key in motivating you and encouraging you to go for it.
Boy, this is a tough one. I come back to my toolkit commentary at the beginning. I'm remembering a big piece of it was that in identifying ideas, you needed to have both a obvious and real product opportunity, but also a customer that cared deeply about what you were solving. And that was like a bright line test that it seems simple enough, but like if you aren't actually applying that to your thinking, and I think that's why, you know, I knew from my wife's experience when I started thinking of things in that realm, that was a very fundamental piece for me in identifying the opportunity.
Thank you to everybody. We just hit 3 o'clock. So want to thank Jen, if you wanted to and Jill make a few last comments, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure. One, I want to thank our panelists. It's so great to have you storytell. This has been fantastic. And it's also wonderful just to see how connected they still are with each other and also with everybody in the startup ecosystem at Wharton. I think that's just very telling. I think that's the story right there that you've heard. That's sort of been the theme of the session. And I'll just say I have worked in this field for a long time, and I love working with young professionals who choose to get their MBA at Wharton. And one of the things that is striking, and I think we've heard a lot of storytelling around this, is that to master something, so to get your master's degree, to master something, you're going to go through change. You're going to experience things. And I think all three of our storytellers today have talked about the experiences along their time at Wharton that changed them, that pushed them. And yet through all how scary that can be, and this is true of any B school you're going to go to, having that community is incredibly important. So I'm glad that we've been able to tell you the story about how you're going to have that community if you choose to do B school, choose to come here, and choose to take this path into entrepreneurship.
Jen, you said that so well. I'm not sure what else I would say besides the, +1. I will say, listening to the panel just makes me feel really nostalgic. Even though y'all only graduated a few years ago, it just makes me think back like, oh, I remember when, I first met Dana, was talking about our idea. And, that's why I think we do the work we do, because we get to be part of these entrepreneurial journeys, and it's so special and, just always exciting for us to meet our new crop of entrepreneurial students coming in. So, I agree with what Jen said, and I think wherever you end up, take the time to experiment, push your boundaries, and really, and try new things, because you are going to have the opportunities to really make some impressive changes in the world, and the world needs it. So you are going to be on the forefront of that. So thank you for taking the time with us today, and hopefully we'll see you at Wharton.
This was so wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us. Thank you to our alumni and our partners in career management and Venture Lab. We're just really blessed in admissions to have such great partnerships with alumni and other staff. So thank you to everyone. Have a great rest of your day and stay healthy and safe. Bye-bye.